Okay. Probably one of the reasons is
okay.
Give me a second.
Okay, no worries.
Now you can do it.
If you can,
Perfect. So a couple things.
Yep.
In the corner there is a link for live streaming. So this is, as of now, live stream in the system, so you can actually take
very good.
Okay.
So I'm actually in my classroom. I have some of my students here.
Okay.
And I will have to switch computers about noontime.
Okay. The other thing, Linda, what I wanted to show you is today is going to be me and you as the moderators.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to show you, and you tell me, what I think. I will just sort of quote unquote start this. So this is the suggested flow. I present the idea behind the conference, then the presentation of SHCI. Then actually, if you can present Santa Cruz, okay, then if you presenters, okay, I can sort of go back here to organizer, and then I will talk about the access for magnetic and the presentation. Now, every time I want you to say something, I'm just going to hand this over to you. I literally will stop if you can take over from me. And also what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these slides to make a sort of walk the line.
To make you know what, hang on, I'm going to switch you. I got to switch the sound here because I'm having a hard time hearing you. So hold on. Should be to extra. Oh, it should work. Okay. Advanced sound option.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Is it not allowing me to broadcast this?
Okay. So I will literally walk through all those slides one by one, so we don't have to guess. And then they have to give the pretty much. They have to give the their presentation. Okay. And that's it. Do you? And then we at some point I decide if we have enough people to the split groups. If we decide so, if not, we just continue with the discussion and just keep moving. I'm going to make you a co-host.
Yes.
So if the things tragically will go wrong, this is where it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
Can you hang on 1 second? I'm going to try something in terms of the sound. Oh, that's much better. Can you hear that? Say something.
Yeah. Yes. Hello, hello, hello.
All right, I can hear you. Good, the students can hear you. So, all right, you're going to make me a co-host so that I can also record it. Yep. Yes?
Yes, you already the co-host.
Okay, good. All right.
So.
Oh, go ahead. Chris, I think we're already having better attendance than last year.
Well, I think after we start actually pumping this into for our channels, we got like what 80 people registered.
So, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, say that again.
We got over 80 people registered.
Actually, 90 now.
92, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're good. I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, I will talk about all the introduction stuff like that, and then you have all you feel to talk about the ethics once they finish. Word of warning: I'm on the clinical service this week, so if something happens, I just switch off my screen, and you guys just continue.
Okay. I think what I might do is enable the transcript too.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I've asked my students to prepare questions for the speakers, although
Okay.
their class ends at noontime, but they can text the questions to me either in the chat or write them down and email them. You know, I'll make sure to pass those on. I
Okay.
think Manel might be joining us too.
Okay. The other thing is what, Matt, you can do it is sort of make sure that if there are questions, or like, we have some kind of problem, just follow up with those issues.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So do we have people in the waiting room or not yet?
And we don't. Actually, somebody just texts me, where is the link for the main thing?
Are they looking for the Zoom link?
Let me just figure it out.
When you guys registered, did you see the Zoom link?
Mhm.
Oh, that's irritating. They're saying it's not showing up on LinkedIn. So I can.
Okay, so let
can
me
we-
just do this.
Okay, can you? Yeah.
Details. See
Yeah.
more. Okay, networking, because it should be in the edit. Or,
It is, but it's not. It just says invite.
working on it. External event link done. Oh, please enter valid link.
Please enter what?
No.
Okay.
Please provide a valid website link.
Oh boy. Should I get Tyler and?
This is copy invitation. Share screenshot, participant post. Give me a second.
Send an email out.
Copy invite link. Okay, now there should be, let me see. One. Event, yes, there is an event link.
Okay. Okay. I see people entering now.
I see Tyler. I don't know who is Brandes Velez.
Oh, that's one of my students.
Okay. Yes. And one was is
Oh,
right black. Okay. Oh, we have some people.
Okay, 10 people.
Okay, do we see our speakers? That's the number one.
Let me see.
Here.
Just
I don't see them.
Oh, that sounds like Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hi. Oh, I don't think Tyler can unmute.
Uh, we need our speakers.
Yeah,
They have 2 minutes.
yeah.
I prefer that they don't give me a heart attack.
You sent them an email saying.
Yeah, I
think
just
the
actually
direct-
sent them right now.
You have to, I guess.
And I sent the email also yesterday.
I saw that. Yeah. Hmm.
Right. Mm.
I'm going to send a message to those in the waiting room. Saying, do we have the speaker's telephone numbers?
Mm. Not sure. Matt, do we have this information?
I am not sure, but I could check if we do.
All right. Let me check my email and see if anybody's reached out to me. That I hope that, okay, 17.
I have Reed Blackman's number.
Oh, good. Can you admit him?
No, not. I have his phone number. I don't know if he's here.
Okay.
Do you want me to text him, or should I send you guys the number?
Let's see now.
Linda,
do you want-
can you nudge him?
Oh, no, I'm happy to. Just text me his number, okay?
Yeah.
You guys are getting to see the sausage made. You know that expression? There's two things you should never see being made, sausage and legislation.
Mm. Well, if we have a problem, then I guess we'll have to go with the plan B. Give me a second. This is not.
Okay, I just sent you his phone number,
Okay,
and I will check on if I have Ben's.
yeah.
Oh, Reed's in the waiting room.
Oh, good.
Okay, let him in.
Yep.
We'll give him 5 minutes and then we'll start. Okay, so I don't need to do my presentation, thanks God. So I was looking for one of my AI presentation. Hello, Dr. Blackman, how are you?
I don't know if he could speak. I think
Hey, there we go.
Ah,
All right then.
perfect. How are you?
Good, good. Doing well. How about yourself?
Now living the dream.
Living the dream?
Living the dream. Did you get my email yesterday by any chance about how this is going to work?
I don't think I got a, I know
Okay.
I got a link from you with. I got the
Ah.
link to you yesterday.
Okay, so this is going to be very simple. I'm just showing you my PowerPoint. So pretty much, you don't need to worry. We will pretty much walk you through the process. I introduced the sort of conference, then introduce organizer. Linda will introduce both speaker, you and the other person. Then we'll talk a little bit about the moderators, and I step in, we'll talk how to access this. This is the format. So introduction, your presentation, other speaker presentation, then you get a Q&A from me and Linda, mostly Linda. Then students will go to the break room. Looks like we have enough for them to split them in the break room. Then they come back and they will pretty much will talk about, pick up a couple questions and closing 3:30, 3:35. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to go to the break room. Actually, we'll try to keep you out of the break room so you can actually get some break. You know, this is the etiquette. I'm sure you're aware of that. And that's pretty much it. After that, we're done. Every time you hear your name, you know, probably somebody is going to nudge you to do something like do the PowerPoint presentation. If Linda needs something from me, I will say, you know, she will talk to me. If the other person needs something, then like, you know, we will talk to each other. So you will be walked through the process. Like, quick question: do you have another speaker in the waiting area or not?
Oh yeah, there he is.
Okay, let's just invite them, and we're going to start.
And my presentation is just 15 minutes, right?
That's fine. Yeah, 15 minutes is fine.
Great.
It's also a teaser for the people.
And can I share my screen?
Okay. Also, if you want to start, there's a YouTube link, everybody can watch in the real time if you desire. So it's in the chat. Okay. Okay, so how are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We
Ben?
haven't met.
How you doing?
My name is Chris Lavdansky. I'm one of the presidents of the society, and I have this rare opportunity to pretty much run this as organizer. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this, and then we'll let the people in. So throughout the presentation, you don't need to do anything. If I say Linda will take over. If she says Chris, I will take over. If you hear your name, most likely we will ask you to do the presentation. We have a welcome. We introduce the conference idea. Then we talk about who organized my society and News of California, Santa Cruz. Linda, we introduce you guys. Again, I produced some that I could grab from the LinkedIn. I hope I did not butcher your CVs or bios too much. Then Linda will talk about the moderators. Then we'll take over. I explain how you access this. This is our format. Introduction. Who wants to do the first presentation? Dr. Blackman or Dr. Gortz?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, whatever.
So Dr. Gortz goes first. Then right after that, we'll go to Dr. Blackman. Then we will break the people into the break room for 10, 12, 15 minutes. You guys stay outside the break room. Okay, and then they will come back and pretty much have a conversation. We run everything by 3:30, 3:35. Any questions? Hey.
Chris, in terms of the moderation, yeah, I'm going to ask participants to go ahead and put questions into the chat.
Yep. So Lina, you're doing
So
all
the break room. What's the mechanics of the break room then?
The break room is for the people who are in the audience. Yeah, so you finish your presentation. Linda may ask, or I may ask one or two questions. We split people in the break room. You guys don't have to go to the break room. We'll keep you outside. This is for the students to talk, and then they will come back and pretty much have some kind of conversation with you. And that's it. Okay?
Okay, so I'll wait in this Zoom for that conversation then.
That's correct. Just wait on the Okay. So let's admit all. This is going to be
So
fun.
I'm talking for 15 minutes, right? And
Yeah.
That is correct. All right, Matt, if you can keep admitting people. Hello, everybody. I apologize for a little bit delay, just to keep you occupied as we finishing all the technical thing. There's an interesting poll. When do you guys think there will be next pandemic? It's 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years? Can't tell. Hmm? Okay, looks like can't tell between 2028. Now, the little bit other question, just to let's share the results. Let's do one more poll, and then we sort of going back to our conference. So this is couple question that I was just curious and just again get you people warm up a little bit here. What do you think about how much of the COVID innovation will persist? And then, you know, which is the most promising innovation in the healthcare? If you can name two, would be great. And which of the innovation in the healthcare is the most hyped? So where should you put your money?
Hey, Chris, can you do me a favor? But it doesn't seem like there's a way for me to turn on the closed captioning.
Okay, I will work on that.
Okay.
All right, so looks like COVID innovation may persist. We split between the RNA technology and genetic engineering. And it looks like the most hype is the AI. Oh, fantastic. All right, so let's share the result very quickly so we can see our collaborative work. All right, let's talk about the conference now. Thank you very much for this poll. So my name is Krzysztof Laudański. I'm president of the SHCI, Society for Healthcare Innovation. Today, together with Linda, we have a conference for you. We call this conference Innovation Frontiers. What we're doing during this conference, we present the absolutely edge of the innovation. What we want to demonstrate, especially in this particular conference, how innovation may have unpredicted and unforeseen consequences. This is actually, when we started doing this conference 3 years ago by SHCI, one of the incredible contributions of the University of California, Santa Cruz, and Linda, and all the people from that faculty, was to bring a new dimension, of ethical dimension to the innovation. I think this is very important part when you think about the innovation. Sometimes, quite often, we don't realize what could be the side effect of the innovation. So let's talk. So in terms of the organizers, there are two entities who organize this conference. University of California, Santa Cruz, more specifically Crown College. And this is incredible community. I apologize for that. I'm at the hospital. It's an incredible living community of the scholars. They work a lot in the field of the ethics and always things what could be done better. Society of Healthcare Innovation is a different mission. We are looking how innovation can be done, how the innovation can be done in the approachable and innovative way by everybody. Now, there are two speakers today, and I'm going to hand this over to Linda because Linda has incredible talents finding the people who are on the absolute edge of the innovation, and they're thinkers, and they thinkers different ways. So you don't see these people on the CBS, although you might. But what you're going to hear is absolutely not standard talk. Linda, if you could introduce the speaker, I would be much obliged.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I'm so pleased to have everyone here, particularly our speakers, Reed Blackman and Ben Gertzel. I've known Ben for, many, many years, and he really is one of the most brilliant minds in artificial general intelligence and artificial intelligence and the possibilities of what it will bring in the future. And I'm also very excited to have my colleague, Reed Blackman here, who's been such a wonderful guide and has taught myself and a lot of my colleagues about the implications not only of artificial intelligence, but also quantum computing. So he's going to be getting into that a little bit today, but both of them are well-known published authors, and often the media will contact them to get their thoughts and opinions. So we have some incredible thought leaders here today, and I'm very grateful to the both of you for showing up and participating in this. You're doing a great service for our students, for our university, for the Society for Healthcare Innovation, and it's very much deeply appreciated. So I forgot to introduce myself. Sorry, I'm Linda McDonald-Glenn. I am the one of the founding directors of the Center for Applied Values and Ethics in Advancing Technology, where we are, our mission is to create a more just, equitable world using technology. Thank you. And Ben, you said you wanted to go first, so why don't we go ahead and start with you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and I'll send you a reminder when, you know, like when 5 minutes is coming up.
Before we go to Ben, couple remarks. So there's a lot of people who contribute to that you don't see. It's Tyler James, who sees the backgrounds. It's Dr. Camps, who support us. It's all the staff from the SHCI, over 10 people. And Matt, who is our intern, who is right now actually learning how to do the not-for-profit and working in the venture space. A couple of things that we need to remember, how you can access this. Well, you can access through the LinkedIn. We actually also streaming live on the YouTube because of the Linda's suggestion. We decided it's much more interactive for the student and much more open. So 40 people that you see is probably a minimal number. There's many more people looking in the different way. How we're going to go about these presentations? Very, very simple. We just wrapping up the introduction. We're going to have 2 presentations by our speaker. Then Linda will ask a couple questions in our moderator Q&A. We will split the participants in a couple break room. We hope that you guys have a lovely discussion about the subject brought by our presenters. Then we will pull you back, and maybe people from those break room could actually pose the question to our presenters. Again, this is geared towards to our students, but everybody should participate. Finally, around 3:30, 3:35, we will close, even though some people will feel a little bit short on that, but we have to at some point close. Now, a couple of things to remember. It's not our first Zoom meeting. COVID make us into Zoom animals. So please mute your audio, position your camera properly if you decide to go on the camera. As you can see, I have an unfortunate lot of distraction. Minimize visual distraction when speaking. Think about the background noise. Again, I presented that being in the hospital has some side effects. If there is a guidance for the break room, please be civil. This should be a conversation, even if we disagree. And please remember that all the conference sessions are recorded, so selected portion will go to the YouTube later for the processing. So that's saying, now we go to Ben. Ben, I'm going to release, stop my sharing, so you can actually go ahead.
One other question. If you want to put questions into the chat, we will take note of them, or if you want to send them directly to me, you can send them by private message directly to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Ben, you should be good to go.
The floor
is
Ben, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna just talk for a few minutes about AI ethics and the technologies associated with AI and how they relate to ethics in both healthcare domain and more broadly. So I've been working on AI, as some of you know, since the 1980s, quite a long time, and well before AI became as popular as it is now, or as impactful in practice. But I mean, thinking about ethical issues regarding AI and AI in medicine, predates my entry into the field, and even predates my birth, right? I mean, my friend Valentin Turchin, who passed away some time ago, who was the main founder of Russian AI. I mean, he had a book, The Phenomenon of Science, I think was published in Moscow, 1968. He laid out many deep and important questions about what will it mean to humanity to have machines that can really think, and when should an AI make a life or death decision, be it in the operating table or the battlefield or wherever, and issues of brain computer interfacing and cyborgs and personal decisions in that regard have existed in literature for a very long time. What's different now is not that these issues are being thought about for the first time. What's different now is that push is coming to shove increasingly for the first time, right? I mean, we don't have machines that can really think like people yet, but we do have AIs making semi-autonomous decisions that are quite key in many aspects of human affairs, be it driving a car, operating a drone, or merely programming people's brains with ads in media, or suggesting to a doctor based on genetic data which therapy might be appropriate for a patient, even if the doctor themselves can't understand all the genetic patterns driving the AI's decision. So a lot of these old issues are getting real for the first time, which is fascinating. It also highlights the fact that we pretty much haven't solved any of these issues, right? And I mean, the same is true in many regards. So like brain-computer interfacing, this and AGI, building real thinking machines, this highlights age-old questions about consciousness and the mind-matter connection. It also highlights the fact that over many centuries and millennia, limited progress on resolving these questions has been made, right? So looking at where we are now with AI, so as to frame a discussion of where we are now with AI ethics and AI ethics for medicine, I would say we're sort of in the middle of the first of 3 AI revolutions, and we're in the middle of what I'd call a narrow AI revolution, of AI being applied to a number of highly specific tasks. Following this will be an AGI revolution, where general intelligence in machines approaches a human level. Then following that, you get super intelligence, like AGI machines rewriting themselves to get smarter and smarter. And we've seen a wave of amazing progress in computer vision and image and video from 2014 on, natural language processing from 2017-18 on. And I think sometime within the next, say, 3 to 10 years, we're going to see an incredible burst of progress over a few years in generalization and imagination and self-understanding. And this, this will be amazing. It will do good for humans across so many different domains, and it will also pose potentially serious ethical conundra, right? And some of the ethical issues that one hears the most about have more to do with the third AI revolution that I alluded to, which is artificial superintelligence, right? Like you have Nick Bostrom's book, Superintelligence. You have alarms being raised by late Stephen Hawking, by Elon Musk. Like, once we have superhuman thinking machines, how do we know they won't just view us all as an inefficient use of matter and reorganize us into extra hard drive space? And that's not the sort of thing you can ever fully rule out, given that we are leaping into the great unknown in many ways. On the other hand, there's also no reason to believe it's especially likely that a superhuman thinking machine would not be compassionate and kindly to us. I mean, you could argue it either way, and in the end, we're in a domain of radical uncertainty. What's clearer is there's a present risk of human organizations with orientations other than the greater good of humanity doing a lot of selfish or nasty stuff with AI, right? And I mean that's clear in terms of large corporations driven by a profit motive. It's clear in terms of nations driven by a desire for their own dominance and over other nations. So what's clear is that there's a danger of narrow AI just being used as one among many powerful tools for people to do selfish and unpleasant things, and there's a risk that the first AGIs are raised in a context of serving some corporations or nations' narrow needs. And one would think if you raise a baby AGI mind with the only motive of making money for some shareholders or stomping the enemies of some country, you might think, well, maybe this baby AGI might grow up to be a not that pleasant adult AGI. Maybe if you raise a baby AGI to do education, elder care, medicine, creative arts, decision support, other mostly beneficial things, maybe if you raise a baby AGI doing beneficial stuff, it will then grow up into a smarter and smarter AGI and ultimately super AGI with more orientation toward compassion, right? And it's not a guarantee. I don't yet see any evidence to contradict that basic common sense. On the other hand, I mean, what we see even with narrow machine learning models now, like you train them on a bunch of racist, sexist, obnoxious data, and they'll say a bunch of racist, sexist, obnoxious things. You train it on a bunch of data from people expressing compassion, and it will express compassion. So even with the relatively primitive AI technology of today, we can see what you teach is somewhat driving the orientation of the AI. And I think this feeds into the particular application area of AI in medicine. I think if it's done right, it can have a lot of power, both in terms of doing good for people right now and in terms of training early stage AGI minds, in a environment where they're working side by side with people to deliver compassionate care to other people, right? And if this is a lot of what's in the mind of young AGIs as they're rolling out, then the odds are biased in our favor. So I mean, I've been working in this direction myself in a couple projects. I mean, my own main focus is on trying to build the cognitive algorithms of human level AGI in the OpenCog project. We have a new version, OpenCog Hyperon, and then in working on a decentralized democratic infrastructure for AI with the Singularity Net project. But there's a couple medical projects in Singularity Net ecosystem, both of which are trying to do good and are up against interesting institutional obstacles in that way. I mean, one is in the Rejuve project, we're working on AI for longevity medicine, and we have an app that allows members to contribute their own medical data, then goes into a decentralized AI network that tries to discover longevity therapies. And in the event something is discovered, the people whose data help learn the models driving the discovery of that therapy, the data contributors should get early access to the therapies, the ability to join clinical trials. They should also get some of the profits eventually. The other thing we're doing is a humanoid robot named Grace, who's the younger sister of the better-known Hanson robot Sophia. Grace is being customized as an elder care robot. We're doing trials with McGill University and Hong Kong University of Science and Technology on the Grace robot for helping combat loneliness and do cognitive exercises and such with elderly folks. And they're, again, in neither of these cases are we in the immediate displacing humans from their jobs. Like for discovering longevity therapies, you're trying to crunch data in ways that people aren't able to, and you're augmenting what bioinformaticists can do. In the case of elder care, you're really trying to compensate for a shortage in nursing assistants and healthcare personnel. Like you've got old people just sitting in hospital rooms by themselves all day. It's not like you're saying fire this nursing assistant, replace them with a robot. It's like you're you're basically getting rid of the TV screen for a couple hours a day and replacing it with a robot that can give some better emotional interaction. So I think each of these cases, in my mind, we're aiming at doing good for people, but in each of these cases, you have weird obstacles posed by institutions that in a way are trying to do good but aren't always, right? And a lot of this has to do with data sharing. Like with the Rejuve app, like we would like people to be able to upload their medical records into the app along with their 23andMe data and date from medical peripherals and Fitbit and Apple Watch. Nobody knows how to get their medical records. You got to go beat the doctor over the head or the insurance company over the head to get your own medical records that you paid for out of your own body, which I guess in some ways the protection against getting your own medical records is there to protect people from doing stupid things and misinterpreting them. But in the modern world, it's not good, right? Because there's a lot of ways to get insight from your own medical data. And with the Grace robot, what you'd like is what the robot learns from talking to one old person goes into enhance its mind in a generic way that help everybody else. That you don't want it to be able to disclose confidential private information about someone to others. So there's a line to be drawn. And again, current medical establishment is very poor at drawing lines with this sort of subtlety, or allowing you to do so, even if you do it well. So to wrap up, the big picture as I see it is, AI is rolling out all over the place. It's going to happen more and more year on year. In my view, we're going to transition toward general intelligences that can think as well or better than people, although we're not there now. But even if I'm over optimistic about that, we're still facing very concrete opportunities for AI to deliver benefit. Each of these does have, weird, complex, never before practically confronted ethical issues associated with it. And also each of these applications, you're spending a lot of your effort dodging around regulations and restrictions that probably someone put into place partly for beneficial reasons initially, but are now actually mostly serving to block you from doing good, right? So it's a very interesting time where we have technical challenges being overcome more and more year by year, and then we're like battering on institutions to get them to adapt to the new technologies and not stand in between the technologies and people. And it's a shame that it's easier to roll out an AI to kill people or brainwash them than to help them heal their bodies and minds, right? Yeah. But that's the case right now, and we're gradually working through these things.
Ben, thank you so much. I have so many questions. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have Reed go next, but just a sampling of the questions that came to mind are: should AI algorithms be allowed to be proprietary? Because one of the big ethical issues is access, equitable access. Also, I'd love to hear more about Grace and how do we teach baby AIs. But I actually think Reed might have something to say about that too. Please, so I'm going to hold off on the questions from everyone, but Reed, are you ready to go?
Yeah, sure. So cool. So I'm going to talk primarily about quantum ethics because that was the request, which I'm happy to do. I've also got lots to say about AI ethics, probably more about AI than I do about quantum, frankly. But yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to share with you a single infographic, really. This is probably the shortest presentation that I made. It's basically 3 slides. There's the title. There's the entirety of the content. And then thank you. So this is very easy. I'm going to share this. I'm going to walk you through this. So my goal here is to give you a kind of overview of what quantum ethics is about. I'm just setting a timer for myself so that, okay. So there's a parallel structure here when I talk about AI ethics. So if you'd like, you could even take the word quantum and swap out the word AI, and you'll have a very similar kind of flowchart with slightly different things filled in. Okay, so When we talk about digital ethics generally, quantum ethics in particular, or AI ethics in particular, or IoT ethics, or metaverse ethics, or AR, VR ethics, I don't care what it is, I'm always going to start with this distinction that I make between, in this case, quantum for good versus quantum for not bad. So quantum for good people, they have explicitly ethical goals. They have an ethical goal, like, curing the world of cancer, decreasing poverty, making education more accessible to all people across the world, blah, blah, blah. So whatever those ethical goals happen to be, sometimes but not always, these are aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, the SDGs. So that's quantum for good. Essentially, the people who I would put in the quantum for good camp are asking the question, given that we've got this new, or we're about to have this new powerful tool called quantum computers, what positive social impact can we have? That's the quantum for good people. The quantum for bad people are not commenting on the goals that you're trying to achieve, but rather the means to those goals, the means to those ends. So this is quantum for not bad is, given that we're going to do what we're going to do, and maybe these are straightforwardly, relatively ethically neutral business goals. We want to sell more things. We need to hire people. We want to optimize the route for our distribution, et cetera, et cetera. Given that we're going to do what we're going to do, given our business objectives, how can we do that using quantum in a way that is not going to be ethically, reputationally, regulatorily, and legally messed up? How do we not ethically screw up, legally screw up, and so on? That's the quantum for not bad, folks. I am a quantum for not bad person. I'm not in the business generally of trying to figure out how can we have a positive social impact using quantum, which is not saying that it's not an absolutely noble role to occupy. It is. It's just not mine. I am primarily focused on avoiding ethical havoc. So I'm a tech for not bad, quantum for not bad, AI for not bad, metaverse for not bad, AR, VR for not bad, so on and so forth. Okay. Once you've gotten to that point, and so then I start thinking about the organizations that are creating or using, let's say using quantum computers in particular. How do we make sure that organizationally speaking, we don't ethically screw things up? And then I like to make a distinction between content and structure. The content side of the equation asks the question, what are the sources of ethical risk? Sorry, what are the ethical risks we're trying to avoid, and what are their sources? What are the ethical risks we're trying to avoid, and what are their sources? The structure side of the equation asks, how do we systematically identify and mitigate those ethical risks? If you like, what's the mechanisms by which we mitigate those risks? So this is the area of governance, of oversight, policy, process, practice, KPIs, tools, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all the structure side. When it comes to the content side, that's what I'm going to focus on for the remainder. What I find interesting, sort of both intellectually and ethically interesting about digital ethics, quantum ethics in particular, is that there is a certain set of ethical risks that are likely to be realized by virtue of how the technology works. Again, it's that there are certain ethical risks, and the probability of realizing those ethical risks is increased by virtue of how the technology works, given the nature of the beast that is quantum or AI or whatever you like. With quantum, to my mind, there are at least 4 ethical risks, the probability of which is highly increased. And here I'm not talking about quantum and a role it might play in an AGI. I'm putting AGI stuff to the side. I suspect that Ben and I have very different, we would assign very different probabilities to the state of affairs in which we have an AGI, super or just regular AGI. So here I'm talking about the particular ethical, reputational, regulatory, and legal risks, the probability of which is increased by virtue of how quantum works. So what does quantum do? This gets very complicated. All we need to know for the purposes of this talk is that it can do phenomenally large computations, large calculations, huge, that far exceed the best supercomputer on the planet right now. How it does that has to do with qubits and how qubits operate as opposed to binary, and how it's exponential progression in terms of its compute power instead of linear, like the computers we have now. Put the how to the side, that gets very complicated. All we need to know for the purposes of this talk is the what, and what it can do is phenomenally large calculations, phenomenally fast. And it can do different kinds of calculations that our classical computers simply can't do. I mean, if our computers can do it today, it would take them hundreds or thousands of years or something along those lines. Okay, so the content side again is what are the ethical risks and what are their sources? So let's look for a second at cybersecurity. Very briefly, not my area of expertise, by the way, but I know enough to know that there are certain kinds of threats to our cybersecurity protections. So the vast majority or a lot of the encryption that is around today is encrypted using one-way hashing algorithms, one-way cryptographic algorithms, which takes something, takes an input, does some calculation, and outputs a hash, a hashed version, an encrypted version of the thing that you inputted. So, excuse me, that's all one way, that's one-way encryption. And what's great about one-way encryption is that you can't go the other way. So a lot of the data right now that is cryptographically hashed is the result of these one-way hashing algorithms. This includes, national security stuff, let alone health records and things of that nature. Now, one of the things that's so interesting about quantum computers is that they can run something, at least it seems we have good reason to believe that they can run something called Shor's algorithm. And Shor's algorithm is an algorithm, it's a computation that actually allows us to go the other direction of the encryption. So it was one-way encryption, and you can't go the other way to decrypt. But if you can run Shor's algorithm, which a quantum computer can in principle do, you can decrypt all the hashings that are out there, all the cryptography that's out there. So for those of you who are familiar with blockchain, for instance, you know that there's a private key and a public key. Your public key is roughly analogous to your email address. Your private key is roughly analogous to the password to your email. You need both of those things in order to send money on the blockchain, for instance, in order to send, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum, Ether or whatever you like. Those private keys are, like I said, they're private, but they are derived from a public available key. It's like but if you can run Shor's algorithm, that would be like being able to figure out your email password by looking at your email. Very dangerous. One of the particularly, fun things about this, you can steal data. You can have organizations that steal data now that decrypt later, right? So suppose you're a Russia or a China, and you steal national secrets from the US, for instance. Let's say the locations of various secret military bases, which is unlikely to change over the next 5-10 years. You get that data now, it's encrypted, you can't read it, but you wait around 5-10 years, you get an appropriately developed quantum computer. Now you run your decryption algorithm, you run it through Shor's algorithm, and now you've got access to all that data that you stole 10 years ago. Crazy stuff. Okay, excuse me. Let's move on to the next big ethical risk, which is accessibility or access. Right now, many people, maybe the majority of people on the planet, have access to a computer, a laptop. You go to the library, you have a computer. Quantum computers are phenomenally difficult to make. Perhaps there'll be some massive changes that make it the case that they are easier to develop and to maintain. As of right now, phenomenally difficult, require things like keeping the quantum computer at a state that's colder than the temperature of outer space, or keeping it in a phenomenally vacuum sealed container. It's just very difficult, engineering wise, a very difficult thing to make, which means that if for the foreseeable future, there will be very few of them around, in the dozens, right? So not a lot. Who's going to have access to that? The richest, most powerful companies around. Who won't? Everybody else. And so while there's a nice distribution of computers across the general population of the world, there will not be anything like that with regards to supercomputer, with regards to quantum computers in the foreseeable future. So there's if quantum computing is as powerful as we think it can be, then you're putting a tremendous amount of power in the hands of fewer and fewer people, companies, organizations, governments, etc. So the widening gap will grow ever wider as quantum computing gets developed and accessed by the few. Okay, next big risk, privacy. I'm just going to sort of, we have these with machine learning or AI as well. So one thing that quantum does is it calculates a tremendous amount of variables, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of variables. So all else equal, depending on what you're doing, the more data you've got, the better. The more calculation it can do, the more precise it can get, the more accurate it can get. For those of you who are familiar with machine learning, all else equal, the more data you've got to train your system, the more accurate the system will be. This means that the fuel of both machine learning and quantum is data. And that data is often about me and you, which is to say that if organizations want to leverage the power of quantum computing, they will need a tremendous amount of data, which is to say the existence of quantum computing and what it can do highly incentivizes organizations to hoover up as much data about people as they can, because they might want to use that one day in their quantum computer. So it's the nature of the beast of quantum computing that it requires a tremendous amount of data for it to be useful. And so it thereby incentivizes organizations to gather that data in ways that are potentially violations of our privacy. The last ethical risk I'm going to highlight, I'm pretty good on time. I'm at 12 minutes. So this is the last thing. One of the big problems with machine learning or AI is this infamous black box problem. Roughly, the issue is you've got your inputs into your black box, into your AI model. You have outputs, but the way that you get from the inputs to the outputs is by way of a phenomenally complex mathematical calculation. And in many cases, these mathematical calculations are far too complex for we mere mortals to comprehend. So for instance, maybe your AI is looking at a photograph at the pixel level to figure out whether it's a picture of your dog, but it's looking at thousands of pixels and the mathematical relations among those pixels. And that's obviously going to be far too complicated a mathematical pattern for us to keep in our heads. And that's super low risk, just, is this a picture of your dog? Not, does this person have cancer? Or something along those lines. Or might this person develop diabetes within the next 2 years? So that's the black box problem in ML or AI. And this just gets exponentially compounded when you throw quantum into the mix, because what does it do? It makes the mathematical pattern that it recognizes phenomenally more complex. So you're going to get the black box problem all over again, because you're not going to, mere mortals, people with our kinds of minds, cannot grasp the mathematical patterns or the calculations that the quantum computer is engaging in. It can understand the inputs, it can understand the outputs, but it will not understand the rules of the game for how it transforms inputs to outputs. And if it can't understand why it transformed these inputs to these outputs, that's a big problem for high-risk scenarios like, we think this person has cancer. We think this person should be diagnosed with this illness. We think this person should receive this course of treatment. We think this drug is going to be the right one for this particular person, if we're talking about quantum computing and precision medicine. So these are all these are ethical risks, the probability of which, these four: cyber access, accessibility to quantum computers, privacy violations, and black box models or black box calculations. These are risks, the probability of which are highly increased by virtue of the way quantum computing works. I've said nothing about the ethical risks that pertain to particular use cases or applications of quantum. So if you're going to use quantum in all sorts of other ways, let's say you want to use quantum computing for advanced sensor capacities. There's things to do with quantum computers and sensing activity at the subatomic level. You could imagine certain kinds of surveillance going on with quantum computing that you wouldn't have without quantum, but you do now. And it's not the nature of the beast that it's going to be used that way. It's because organizations, people make decisions to apply quantum computers in certain contexts where other kinds of ethical risks are highly likely to be realized. So the four that I've highlighted on the content side, I raise because, again, the probability of those risks is increased by virtue of the beast that is quantum computing. But then there's all sorts of countless unimaginable ethical risks that pertain to particular use cases or applications. In general, I think that the deeper we go on the content side, we can really understand the nature of the beast and how it increases the risk of those ethical risks, the probability of those ethical risks being realized. we'll do much better at figuring out the structure side. That is to say, what do we need to do, if you like, mechanistically speaking, from a governance perspective, what do we need to put in place to systematically identify and mitigate those risks? And that's the whole thing. Thanks so much, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Reed. Thank you, Reed. That was amazing. So many questions, so little time. But one of my questions, I'm going to start with a question for you and then bring it back to Ben. You and I have talked about the importance of each company having its own AI review board, ethics review board. And obviously, it sounds like that's the first step, and we're going to have to be doing something similar with quantum computing. I guess one of my questions is, do you think this really can be done from an inside basis within the company, or do you think there might have to be an external review board?
So look, like in my ideal world, what we would have in digital, innovation is something akin to IRBs. We'd have something like digital IRBs. I think that
Yes.
There's a lot of people wringing their hands around, hey, how do we do AI ethics? And frankly, one, I don't think it's, in some sense, if you understand the real issues, I don't think it's that difficult. But one thing that people don't seem to do is look at other industries or other spaces that have tried to tackle this ethical problem. You look at healthcare, and you see that they have things like IRBs, and hospitals have ethics committees. It's not a mystery. I don't think that IRBs are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that we should exactly mirror the regulations around IRBs and just hit copy paste and just put in the word digital. It needs to be done obviously more thoughtfully than that. But yeah, IRBs or something akin to external ethics committees can be phenomenally powerful. Can it be done internally? In principle, yes. Some organizations are doing it. They're few and far between. And I do think that we ultimately need regulatory requirements around these kinds of things. We're not going to get it in AI, I don't think. It seems highly unlikely at this point, given where the EU AI Act is. But yeah, I think the external board is a phenomenal tool that is unlikely to be utilized by the vast majority of organizations.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I look forward to following up on that conversation another time, because I think, as you and I have spoken, it's one of the things we're working at UC Santa Cruz, not necessarily to AI, but maintaining ethical integrity through peer review. Maybe not perfect, but it's a good start. Thank you. Ben, you've argued that, if I remember correctly, that artificial general intelligence should not be proprietary, that it should be open source. Is that still your position? And do you have any response to Reed?
I have a technical note, which is the host of the Zoom call will not let me restart my video.
This problem has been remedied. Please try again.
All right. So here we are. Yeah, I mean, I tend to be somewhat anarchic in my philosophy and approach, and is always bad necessarily. I wouldn't want to see proprietary AI outlawed or something. I think there's a lot of interesting things one can do with formal verification, where you can formally verify, depending on the language code is written in, you can formally verify that it obeys certain properties, even without looking at the code. So I mean, that there could be good reasons to do that in some case. That said, I have a pretty strong orientation and bias toward open source software and toward code that is not just open source, but is running on data that's as open as makes sense given people's privacy, and is running on compute networks that are very widely distributed and that are democratically controlled by a huge number of people. I mean, I think it's good that the internet is decentralized rather than controlled by one party, and I'm glad things like net neutrality have not been other disasters. And I think it's good that Linux exists so that, you know, China, Iran, and North Korea all can run cutting edge operating systems, even though the US government doesn't like them, right? So I think on the whole, the fact that you have these open, decentralized networks and platforms out there is good. And on the whole, I think it's probably better if AI and AGI are developed in that vein. So I think if you look at Nick Bostrom's book Super Intelligence, which was 2012 or something, he was sort of fantasizing about maybe AGI could be developed only by a small number of researchers, like in a sealed vault underground, sanctioned and permitted by the UN and protected by a bunch of military guys. And he's kind of backed off on that because it's just not the way things are happening, right? Corporate is doing better than the government in developing advanced AI. But yeah, intuitively, I somewhat shrink away from that sort of direction. I mean, there's very well-known failure modes with that sort of self-appointed elite developing something in secrecy, right? So yeah, I think you know, we can see in science and medicine, of course, among other areas, the value of being open and opening up data and opening up procedures and data regarding trials and so forth. So yeah, there's risks all around. Of course, if something's open, a bad guy can fork your code and turn it into something nasty, right? And so far, I'm not convinced those risks are worse than the risks of some closed group developing powerful stuff.
Thank you, Ben. At this point, I think what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms so that people can chat with each other and come up with some other questions.
So we're going to split in the total of 4 break rooms. It's total random process. Dr. Gertz and Dr. Blackman, you may end up with this room. I will pull you out because it's for the students to discuss. And after around 8 minutes, you will have people will have a chance to actually go back, turn on the cameras, and sort of have a lively discussion. You will be in the room for around 8 minutes. You get a 1-minute warning sign before the room will stop. Any questions?
I'm going to ask you to do that because I need to switch computers at this point.
Okay. All right. We'll go to the breakout rooms.
Okay, thanks. I'll be right back.
Hi, Linda left. Hi, my name is
Yeah.
Nada. I'm one of Linda's colleagues.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Nada.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
can hear you, Nada.
I have to teach a class right now, so if you could ask Linda to make sure and get the participants list, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can give you some list of the participants. I did a couple screenshots. Actually, give me a second.
Thank you so much.
I can give you 30 people. We have like
Great.
45 at some point. I just didn't capture all of them. All right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna Right.
I'll see you tomorrow. Great
see you
session.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
No
Bye-bye.
problem. Great speakers.